Hello and welcome to Nana's Crafty Home. My name is Tanya. Today's tutorial is going to show you how to complete the balloon stitch hat that you can find as a free pattern on my website. This is a slouchy style hat that is worked with the wonderfully unique, beautifully textured balloon stitch here. And you can see here how these balloons puff up out of your work. This may look intimidating to some of you, but don't worry. This is a lot easier than what you might expect by just looking at the hat. Primarily, these stitches, what you're going to learn today in the video is how to work front post, back post double crochets, as well as double crocheting 7 together and doing a front post double crochet 7 together. So don't worry, I'm going to show you every step of the way with this beautiful hat. Also, this part here on the brim is worked separately and at the end. We work from the bottom up, but this is the faux knit stitch using half double crochet. So you're going to learn, if you haven't done some of these stitches before, you're going to learn a lot of stuff today. So this is a fun hat. It is a very tall hat, hence the slouchy. The total size of this is... The total size of this hat is approximately 10.5 inches tall and about 9 inches wide lying flat, which is an adult size hat. You certainly could work this for another size. You would just change up your beginning chain because I am working this in the round. And when you are working this pattern and you want to alter the beginning chain, you would chain in multiples of 12 to adjust the size hat that you would want to make. So if you don't want as slouchy of a hat, if you don't want it to be as tall as mine, you would just stop working the pattern a little sooner and go ahead and sew the top part of your hat closed. But lots of different things here. For supplies, all you're going to need is 2 skeins, 2 balls of Lion Brand's Vanna's Choice yarn here. Today for the tutorial, I am going to be working this hat in color oatmeal. These are great. There's like these little tweed bits that kind of come out from the yarn itself, which creates this wonderful texture in the hat. So each one of these balls are a total of 3 ounces and 145 yards. So in order to make this in a different size worsted weight yarn, you would need approximately 290 yards. I used every bit of these 2 skeins for my hat. So approximately 290 yards will get you this hat as I've worked it for an adult size. Also, you will need a size J 6.0 millimeter crochet hook and a fun faux fur pom-pom to add to your hat. If you like the faux fur pom-pom that I've added here, I do provide a link on my website to the pom-poms that I purchased off Amazon. They were really inexpensive and they've worked out really well for me with the different hats that I've made. I've been very happy with them. So if you would like to purchase the same pom-poms, you can go ahead and follow that link on my website at the free pattern to purchase that. And that is an affiliate link, which doesn't cost you any extra, but does help me provide these videos and tutorials for you at no cost. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and get our yarn on our hook here. And again, your beginning chain, if you're making a different size, would be in multiples of 12. But for my pattern as written, you're going to need to chain 72 chains to start out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to show you a little trick if you don't know this already. Since I'm going to be doing a slip stitch to that first chain, I don't want to twist this chain around to start my first row. So a little trick that I can show you here is to remove your hook when you get about 10 chains on your hook. Go ahead and insert your hook in that first chain that you made, and then go ahead and put your hook back into that loop, and then continue doing your chains up to the amount required. So for 72, so just continue on with 11, 12, 13, 14. So I have 72 chains on my hook to go ahead and slip stitch to form that ring. Instead of having to do a slip stitch without twisting, it's already on my hook. Go ahead and just pull through here. And now I have this beginning chain that has not twisted at all, and I am confident that I can move on to my first row without a twisted beginning chain. So a great little tip for you if you didn't already know how to do that. So for round 1 to start out, I'm going to go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to go ahead, and that chain 3 is going to count as a stitch here and throughout the rest of my pattern. I'm going to work 7 double crochets in the next chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then I want to work 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 chains. And you want to be careful here because I've worked so many double crochets in that one chain. It's really made this chain tight and it's easy to miss it. So just be really careful to find the next chain and work a double crochet into it. And it is going to be a tight chain because it's squished it together. So there's the first one, and then work a double crochet in the next chain. Now in the next, I'm going to work double crochet 7 together. And I'm going to work that double crochet 7 together over the next 7 stitches. So basically this is working 7 incomplete double crochets over the next 7 chains. So yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2. That's my first one. Yarn over, insert my hook into the next chain, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2. That's number 2. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That is number 3. Yarn over, insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's number 4. Yarn over, insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's number 5. Yarn over, insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's number 6. Yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. Okay, so I've worked a total of 7. Let's make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 incomplete double crochets over the 7 chains. I'm now going to yarn over and pull through all those loops on my hook. And I'm going to work a chain in order to secure that stitch and complete that stitch. So then over the next 2 stitches, I'm going to work 1 double crochet in each. So double crochet in the next chain, double crochet in the next chain, and I'm going to go back and repeat my pattern of 7 double crochets in the next chain. So work 7 double crochets in the next. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to work a double crochet in the next 2 chains, again being careful not to skip any of them since that one chain got really tight. So double crochet in the next and double crochet in the next chain. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. So it's made this kind of wavy because I'm working 7 double crochets in one chain. I'm coming down here and I'm working 7 over 7 stitches and working them together. So it's creating almost the chevron look here at the beginning row, which is exactly the way that it's supposed to look. So I'm going to continue that pattern around. The next thing that I'm going to do is work 7 double crochets together over the next 7 chains. So there's number 1, there's number 2, there's number 3, number 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook and chain 1 to secure the stitch and finish it. So continue that on around, working a double crochet in the next 2 chains and then working 7 double crochets in the next chain, and continue working that same stitch pattern all the way around to the end until we get to our last chain, and we're going to double crochet in our last chain. I've completed round 1 with a double crochet in that final chain after I had done a double crochet 7 together. Now at this point you want to come back and make sure that you have the right stitch count for this round. It's really important that this foundation round for your hat is correct. You have the right stitch count and you have the right stitch pattern as you move through this round, so that when you go to the next rounds, you have a better likelihood of having those be correct. So make sure that you have 72 stitches here. And one point I want to make when you're coming back and you're counting these stitches, remember when we worked that double crochet 7 together, in order to complete and secure that stitch, we did a chain 1. Don't count that chain 1 as a stitch. So when you're counting your stitches, of course, here's your last double crochet, that's a stitch. For this double crochet 7 together, don't count this chain 1. Make sure and count the actual stitch that you did, or count the chain 1 as your stitch. Just don't count it twice. You may have the tendency of, oh, well, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. No, that's really only 1 and then 2 stitches, because this double crochet 7 together is 1 stitch. So go ahead and make sure that you have 72 stitches to begin round 2. And when you are ready, go ahead and slip stitch to that chain 3 that we did at the beginning of the round, and we're ready for round 2. For round 2, we're going to go ahead and chain 3 again. 1, 2, 3. Again, that counts as your first stitch. And remember, this is our 7 double crochets that we worked in 1 chain. And we're going to go ahead and work a front post double crochet in each one of these stitches. So around each one of these 7 double crochets, I'm going to work a front post double crochet. A front post double crochet is simply starting your double crochet with a yarn over, inserting your hook from the front around the post to the back, and then again to the front of that post, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2, and yarning over, pulling through 2 to complete that double crochet. So that double crochet is worked around the post from the previous round, from the front, around the back to the front again. So let's do our next one. So yarning over, inserting our hook from the front. The hook goes around that post, back to the front, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So work a front post double crochet around each of those 7 double crochets. And once we've worked around all 7 of those double crochets, we have those 2 double crochets next. They were a double crochet in each of the next 2 chains. We're going to work a back post double crochet around each of those double crochets from that previous row. So we're going to yarn over, and we're going to insert our hook around that post, but this time we're going to come in from the back instead of the front. We're going to insert our hook around that post to the back as well. So around, that's the front of your work, this is the back of your work. So your hook is on your back of your double crochet, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2, and yarning over and pulling through 2. So I want to do that same thing with the next double crochet. Insert my hook from behind, around to the back again, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2, yarning over, pulling through 2. So now I've worked 2 back post double crochets. Now I'm to the 7 double crochets together. So these are the double crochets that I worked together. I'm going to work a front post double crochet around this stitch. So remember, this stitch had a chain plus, that first double crochet. I want to work that front post double crochet around that stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to insert my hook around that whole stitch, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2, and yarning over, pulling through 2. I have a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Again, I'm going to work a back post double crochet around each of those. So inserting your hook from behind around that post, completing a double crochet from behind around the post, complete your double crochet. I'm back to the 7 double crochets worked in 1 chain. I'm going to again work a front post double crochet around each of those stitches. So I'll have 7 front post double crochets. Then over the next 2 double crochets, I'm going to work a back post double crochet around each of those, inserting my hook from behind and around, completing that double crochet. And then here we are again at our double crochet 7 together. I'm going to yarn over, and that front, I'm going to work a front post double crochet around that whole stitch. And I want you to see where I'm working that, because this can be probably one of the most confusing things for people. I want to work around this whole stitch right here. And you can see I've got these 2 holes. This would have been that final, this would have been the pull through when I pulled through those 7 double crochets and then the chain 1. So I'm going to insert my hook around that stitch from the front, back to the front, and then complete my double crochet. Back to my 2 double crochets, I'm going to work a back post double crochet around each of those. So that is your stitch pattern for round 2. So continue on working a front post double crochet around the double crochet 7 in the 1 stitch, back post double crochet around each single double crochet stitch, and then work a front post double crochet around the double crochet 7 together, around back to the end, and you will work 1 back post double crochet because you will have 1 final stitch left in the round. And when I come back, we will see how to do round 3. I've completed round 2 with a back post double crochet around that last stitch. And I can't stress enough, I really do recommend that at the end of every round, you go back and verify that you have the correct number of stitches. With this type of pattern, it is very easy to miss a stitch or to double up on a stitch, working a front post double crochet around an extra stitch here. So it is really important, I feel, and it's gonna be good for you to not have that headache of having to rip out 3 or 4 rows because you realize, oh my goodness, I made a mistake way back there. So it only takes a couple minutes to count extra each row, and so just verify that before you move on to round 3. So slip stitch to that first chain there, that chain 3 that we did. Round 3 and round 4 are just a repeat of round 2. The only difference here, so go ahead and chain 3. The only difference here is when we work around that, the double crochet 7 together, we've worked a front post double crochet. So just go ahead and work your front post double crochet around the next 7 stitches, and you can see your balloon is starting to take shape here. That front post double crochet over these 7 stitches is really making that balloon shape and causing that to really pop out at you. So you'll just keep repeating this row for a couple more rows, and then we will close that balloon off after that in round 5. So then your next 2 stitches are back post double crochets again. And now we're at that, down here you can see this was that double crochet 7 together, which we did a front post double crochet around that whole thing. Well, now we already have a double crochet. We're just going to be working a front post double crochet again around that double crochet post from the previous round. So just continue on with that same stitch pattern, working a back post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. Front post double crochet around the next 7. Continue that on around. For round 3 and 4 will be a repeat of the same round when I come back. Next up will be round 5, where we will close off that first set of balloons that we've created. I've now completed round 4, and you can see these balloons are really starting to take shape here. And now for round 5, it's time to close this first set of balloons off and start another set of balloons. And basically the balloons that we would start working will be offset from this first set that we made, so they will be moving up kind of diagonally as we go up this pattern, and you'll see what I mean here in a bit. So to end round 4, we slip stitch here and then chain 3 as always. And we're going to now, these were my front post double crochets in that 7 and 1 here. So now to close this and give it the same shape at the top as we did at the bottom, I'm going to be working a front post double crochet 7 together. So basically I'm going to be working my front post double crochet but incomplete. So yarn over as we would for a regular front post double crochet, inserting from the front around the back to the front again, yarning over and pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2, leaving 2 loops on the hook. We don't want to complete that double crochet. So then the second one, we do the same thing and just pull through 2, leaving that 3 loops on the hook. We do the same thing with the next one, pull through 2, 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 and then the last one here, all 7, pull through 2. So now I want to yarn over and pull through all those loops on my hook and then chain 1 to finish and secure that stitch. And that has closed that first balloon off. Then I work a back post double crochet around the next 2 stitches as I have been in the previous rounds. And now this is where I'm going to start my next balloon by working 7 double crochets in that next stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Back post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. And here we want to close this balloon off, so we work the front post double crochet 7 together. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, 6, and 7, yarning over and then pulling through all the loops, chaining 1 to finish. The biggest thing with that is you may notice, depending on how long the shaft of your hook is, it may get kind of tight, a little bit awkward because you have so many loops on your hook. Don't worry, just keep those loops on your hook and then you shouldn't have any problems. And so really that's just the repeat as we go throughout this round. Back post double crochet around the next 2, 7 double crochets in the next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Back post double crochet around the next 2, There's one, there's two, front post double crochet 7 together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yarn over, pulling through all the loops, and then chaining 1. So continue on with that same pattern all the way around, working a back post double crochet in your last stitch. I've completed round 5. I've closed off every one of these balloon stitches here. I've started the next set of balloon stitches in between these that I just closed off. So now we're going to move on to round 6 by, first I want to slip stitch here to the top of that chain 3, chain 3. Now my stitch pattern is basically the same, except the placement of the stitches is a little bit different from this round because of where the balloons are at. So my very first stitch that I'm going to work is a front post double crochet around the front post 7 double crochets together that I worked from that previous round. So the same concept, working that front post double crochet around that whole stitch area there. Then working a back post double crochet over the next 2 stitches. And now I'm at that 7 double crochets in 1 stitch. I'm going to work a front post double crochet around each of those stitches. Back post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. And then work that front post double crochet around that stitch, the next stitch here. And continue working that stitch pattern around until we get the end where we're going to work a back post double crochet around that last stitch. Once round 6 is completed, we move on to round 7, and round 7 and round 8 are essentially a repeat of round 6. The only difference here is that we're able to work that front post double crochet around the previous front post double crochet instead of around that front post double crochet 7 together. So work that same stitch pattern that we just worked. Continue on with round 7 and 8, and then once you've completed round 8, I will come back and show you how to close that second set of balloon stitches for round 9. So for row 9, it's time to close off and complete that second set of balloon stitches here, and that is with a chain 3. We're going to 7 double crochets in that next stitch, because when we're closing off that balloon stitch, we're starting our next set of balloon stitches here. So 7 double crochets in that next stitch. Back post double crochet around the next 2. And now we're going to close off that next balloon stitch by working a front post double crochet 7 together. So remember, that's working an incomplete double crochet, working around that post from the previous round over all 7. Once you've worked an incomplete double crochet around those 7 stitches, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook and chain 1 to complete the stitch. So we work a back post double crochet around the next 2 and 7 double crochets in the next stitch. So we just repeat that around for round 9. And for rounds 10 through 27, we go back and pick up rounds 2 through 9. So we basically just do a repeat of what we just did here, repeating on until we want to end our hat. Mine ends with round 27. If you want to make yours shorter than that, I would recommend that you end on a round like this one, where you're closing off that balloon stitch and working that first round of the next one, because then what happens is you have your hat looks the same on both sides, see? So make sure and just end wherever you want to end, and your last row is that closing of your balloon stitch round. So continue on, and when I return, I will show you how to sew your hat together at the top, add your pom-pom, and then we will get to the bottom edge of our hat. I have finished through round 27, and you can see here that my last round that I worked is a close the balloon round. Basically, that last round you want to make sure that your balloon gets closed so it makes a full balloon. And again, you can do that at any point to make this hat more fitted. You can leave off this last section of balloons here and end on this section. So that can happen at any point in your hat when you've reached the size that you would like to work with. So now that we have finished the size hat that we want, I left a long tail for sewing, and we're simply going to be closing the top of this hat to add our pom-pom. And how I do this is just simply weaving in that end throughout the top of that hat. And as I'm going through with the needle, periodically I'm just going to tighten that hat together and get it as tightly closed as I possibly can as I'm weaving this long tail in and out of the top of the hat. And I'm just doing that through the holes here at the top. You don't really want to go through the fibers themselves, because that's going to make it hard to get your hat nice and tight and to be able to pull your yarn easily. You want that that end that you're weaving through there to be nice and loose so that you can pull nice and tightly as you're working in and out of those holes. So you're just going to weave around the top of this hat, working in and out of the holes, and you can go a couple of stitches. You don't have to go through every single stitch. You're really just trying to pull the top of that hat together. And so I've worked a few stitches here, and when I pull, you can see it pulls all of those stitches tightly together. And you just want to keep doing that around the top portion, all the way around, pulling tightly, so that when we get back to the other side, that's going to be a nice and tight close at the top. And so this is the same technique that you can use anytime you're working a hat in the round like this. And I do tend to gravitate more to hats worked in the round, simply because to me, they're easier to resize to other sizes. You know, you don't have to be quite as particular about matching gauge as long as your beginning chain is the correct size for the head that you're working for. So to me, that just seems easier for most people to work hats that way. I know a lot of people complain, even experienced crocheters, that they've never worked a beanie hat that's worked from the top down that's fit properly. And you know, that has a lot to do with gauge and making sure that you check your gauge, but there's a lot of people who find that very onerous, don't like to do that. So a good option for you, if you're that type of person, if you don't want to have to do that, is to work your hats in the round. And then you don't have to be quite so particular about does your gauge match the original pattern, because you can work your original beginning chain to fit the size head that you're working towards. So anyway, just an interesting little tip about hats and how those are worked. And there's lots of different ways to work hats, but this is a very common way for me to design my patterns, is worked in the round and then closing the top of the hat. That's also a great way to get a slouchy style hat if you prefer slouchy style. It makes it really easy to adjust how tall your hat is, how slouchy you want it, if you want it more fitted or if you want it to be more slouchy off the head. It's just simply a matter of working more rounds. So as you can see, I'm just continuing to work around and see, look what's happening here at the top of my hat. This is pulling nice and tightly. And as I continue working around, and it's going to be a lot of, especially with these balloon stitches, it's going to feel a little bit awkward, especially when you get to the end here, because what's going to happen is you've got a lot of yarn. This is a bulky, because you've got these balloon stitches, can be somewhat bulky. So don't worry, just pull as tightly as you can. If you have a tiny little hole, I can show you what to do with that too at the end here before we go ahead and sew on that pom-pom. So just continue working the same, weaving in and out the top, pulling tightly to get that hole closed. And when I come back, I'll show you how to finish sewing your hat together at the top, and we will add our pom-pom. All right, so we have finished weaving all the way around the top part of that hat, and you can see here, look how tightly closed I was able to get that just by weaving around the outside edge and then pulling tightly as I went. I was able to get this pretty much completely closed with just a little bit of a gap. And simply all you're going to do there is to close that hole, just work a couple of stitches across. And that's going to do a couple things. That's going to anchor your hat in place, keep it nice and tightly closed, and that yarn that you're using as well. And then once you weave in that end, that hat's not going to come undone. So just place a couple stitches, making sure that you're grabbing both sides here. And once you're satisfied with that closure, once you feel confident that nothing's going to come undone, that hole is nice and tightly closed, we'll go ahead and add our pom-pom on here. And don't worry, that's going to cover up any of this work that you've done, but you can tell here it's really not showing at all. It's pretty invisible what we're doing here, but once we add that pom-pom, we're not going to see anything. So don't worry about that. And I'm feeling pretty good about this. So now it's time to go ahead and add that pom-pom on. And I've picked this black one to go with this hat. And most pom-poms, even if you make your own, you'll add a little elastic loop to easily attach to things. And so I'm just going to work my needle around that loop a couple of different times. Push my needle down through the hat into the inside. And pull till the pom-pom is nice and tight up against the hat. And I'm going to do that a couple different times. And then I will fasten off after I've done that. Push your needle through again. And just make sure when you're pushing that needle through, you're not catching any of the inside of the hat on your needle. Pull it nice and tightly. And now I can go to the inside of the hat. So now that we're on the inside of that hat, I'm just going to make sure that that's pulled nice and tightly so that pom-pom is not loosey-goosey at the top of my hat. And then I'm just going to anchor this yarn in place and then weave in my end. I just don't want that pom-pom to go anywhere. All right, so that's how you add your pom-pom. See, it's nice and tight onto my hat. I've covered up that hole nicely. You can't see anything. The hat is nice and tightly closed. You can go ahead and weave in your end. And now we are ready to add the finishing edge on the bottom brim of our hat. So with the right side of your hat facing, you're going to be attaching your yarn at the bottom edge, the brim of your hat. And I like to do that all at the seam, so everything's all seamed in the same place. It can be the back of your hat, and so it can be as invisible as possible. And this is where that beginning seam, that join that we had. So I'm just going to attach my yarn there. I'm going to chain 2. That's not going to count as a stitch for me, and I'm going to go ahead and half double crochet in that same place. And now I'm just going to work a half double crochet in every stitch around the bottom of the hat. So just a half double crochet all the way around. And so you're really just catching those loops from your beginning chain, those unused loops. So continue working around in those unused loops, a half double crochet all the way around the bottom edge of your hat. So once we get back to the beginning and we've worked a half double crochet in all of those unused loops, we're going to go ahead and slip stitch to the top of that first half double crochet that we did. Now for rounds 2 and 3, these are going to be repeats here. All we're going to do is a chain 2, and we're going to half double crochet in the hidden loop behind the half double crochet that we just worked. And so this would be like the faux knit stitch. It's also can be called the rib half double crochet. There's several different names for it, but essentially you're working your half double crochet in a different loop than what you're accustomed to. So I'm going to bring this down just a bit. So typically we would be working our stitch in these top 2 loops that you see here from our half double crochet, but instead of working in those 2 loops, we're going to work in that 3rd hidden loop that's back behind those 2 loops. So when you're looking at your work from the front, you see these 2 loops. But when you pull your work forward just a little bit, you can see back behind these 2 loops, there's a little loop right behind those, underneath. So pull your work forward just a little bit, roll it forward, and look at that loop that's sitting there waiting for you. So you're just going to be working your half double crochet in that loop alone, leaving these 2 unworked. So in that first half double crochet, roll your work forward just a little bit. And let me get that really close so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to roll that forward just a little bit, and this is the loop that I'm going to be working that half double crochet in. So just insert your hook into that 3rd hidden loop and work your regular half double crochet. Then again, those are the 2 loops. Roll it forward just a little bit. There's my 3rd loop. Work your half double crochet. Once you have found that loop, so here's my 2, roll it forward. You see that little loop right there? Work your hook in there and work your half double crochet. Once you find that loop, you're really not going to probably need to roll your work forward because you're just going to know where that loop is at. But at the beginning, just, as you're getting more sure of yourself, just, hold your work, roll it forward a little bit till you see that 3rd loop back behind those 2 loops and work your half double crochet. I do have a video specifically for that stitch. So if you would like to get a little more information, get a little more in-depth detail about that stitch, check that video out. But you're just going to work around in that 3rd hidden loop and see what happens here as I'm working that loop. What a neat effect you get from that, because you're not working those 2 and you're working back behind them. It's pulling those 2 loops forward in your work, and that's what gives it that really neat knit appearance. And I just love that look. I use it a lot in my work and my designs. It's a fun stitch to do, and once you found that 3rd loop, boy, you're never going to forget that it's there. So just continue working around in that 3rd loop, a half double crochet all the way around, slip stitch to the beginning stitch, and then repeat that for round 3. Once you've completed that round 3, you have this really interesting faux knit edge on your hat that just gives this the perfect finishing touch. Go ahead and weave in your ends once you're done and you have completed your Balloon Stitch Slouchy Hat, a fun pattern with a lot of texture, and you'll be able to take this stitch anywhere you would like to take it. This is a fun variation on the front post, back post, double crochet, and really shows you the versatility and how really textured you can get with these stitches. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like my tutorials, please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's that little red box that you can see. Just click on that and that will take you where you need to go. And also you can follow me on social media if you make any of my projects and share on social media. Remember to add hashtag Nana's Crafty Home, and find me on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for being with me. See you soon. Bye-bye.